Alright guys, and now I want to talk about elementary plans in chess. So we're not going to cover any complicated grandmaster strategies here, but we will figure out the basic shortcuts and guidelines we should use for figuring out where to attack, what to do after you get out of the opening, and basically to have a clue of what you're doing. Because a lot of people, a lot of beginner chess players that I see, they follow the ABCs of chess. They activate their pieces, they're safe with their king, and they centralize. But then, for some reason, they start playing very strange moves and going astray because they've done everything they've been taught, but they haven't been taught how to make any, elementary plans. Not even talking about any grandmaster strategies here. Uh, so here's a position from the Carlsbad structure of the Queen's Gambit, and White has a majority on the king side and center. So this is actually 4 against 3 if you look at it that way, and Black has 4 against, or you could say 3 against 2 on this side of the board. So Black has more pawns here, White has more pawns there. When figuring out a plan, look at the central pawns and where they're facing. So right now, White's pawns are actually facing this way. I call it the arrow, okay? So you imagine somebody is shooting an arrow, perhaps the king, and he's helping you guys because he's showing you exactly where to fire. You're firing on the queen side because that's where the pawns are facing and shooting. And so if Black has a central pawn looking that way, so you have this pawn chain b7 to c6 to d5, clearly we should be attacking this way, and Black's pieces will evolve around this. Now a lot of you guys will say, what if Black had pawns that are looking both ways? Then what do we do then? Well, then actually you choose. Sometimes you can play on the queen side, sometimes you can play on the king side, so both are possible. Okay, the other thing that will help you with figuring out where to attack is where do you have mobile pawns. So right now, for example, White, I will take the example for White. These pawns are clearly not going anywhere. If White tries to push for e4, which a lot of people may like because, ooh, you're getting the center and everything, right? But then you create a huge weakness on d4. It's called an isolated pawn. You don't really want to do that unless you're winning a pawn or something. Clearly, you're not gonna push this pawn to the king on g1 unless you'd like to get checkmated, which I hope you don't. So that's why we're gonna push the only pawns remaining, which are actually the A and B pawns, and we're gonna go for a minority attack, which is a bit complicated. I don't expect you guys to know this yet, but the idea is I want to attack the queen side because that's where my pawns are facing, and that's where my mobile pawns are. Mobile means moving. I can move these guys. I can actually shoot them up the board at the opponent and try to create weaknesses so I can win their pawns. For example, right now the pawns are very strong. They're protecting each other, they're stable. But if I can trade off a few pawns, then one of them, for example the c6 pawn, may become isolated and a backwards pawn. So then I can attack it with all my major pieces, which will be standing behind the pawns. So the plan for White should look something like put a rook over here, put a rook over here, and then if Black tries to play a5, okay, fine, we'll trade off one pawn here, and then we will trade off another pawn over there, like this, this, and this. So now they have a bad pawn on c6, and we're going to try to either invade on the b file, or we're going to just scoop up the pawn. The knight is probably going to come to a4, and then this pawn is going to be hard to defend for Black, who's having some difficulties here. Actually, he's lost, but we did give White like 20 extra moves. If, worst case scenario, he found some way to defend it, let's say he did something like, it's not so easy to imagine how it can be defended, but bishop d7 is one way, then I'll bring in my knight. If they would like to take, I'll probably take with the pawn, put a knight on d4 to attack the weakness, and then invade on the b file, using those open files, and then get the picnic table as was discussed in the last lesson. So that's an example of the plan for White. Now let's talk about Black. Is it all hopeless? as I made it seem in this game by giving white 20 extra moves, or does black have play of his own or her own? Well, let's put this guy's back. So there's a pawn here, and there's a knight over there. If black also plays moves, then he also has decent chances at a good game. And let's take a look. His pawns are pointing there. He doesn't have any mobile pawns because if he plays there, that's the side where he's weaker, right? And so you should never be pushing pawns on the side where you're weaker. And why is he weaker? Because white has this open highway that he can use, or semi-open highway, as we say. Black should actually be attacking on the king side using his local piece majority. So let's give black that bishop that I stole for them, which was on here, on e7. And then let's show the plan for black. So black is going to play something like knight f8, knight g6. It does two things. First of all, I defend my pawn on h7, so the knight isn't overextended. And then I attack this bishop, and when the bishop goes back, I start bringing in all my pieces. So maybe I'll trade off this defender, and after trading him off, maybe over here, I'll start bringing in my other pieces. Probably I'll try to put a knight either on e4, or slowly but surely I'll get my queen to the h5 square where it belongs, where I can start using my bishop and all those knights to checkmate this white king. So while white has his own plan trying to take pawns, black is going to try to checkmate white using something called the local piece majority. What does that mean? Right now, black has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. The bishop doesn't fully count, but he's definitely helping, so I count him as like a potential attacker, or as a half of an attacker, you could say. And with all those pieces, I can jump on the white king on the king side because he has less pieces there than me. So we really attack wherever we have more pieces. And if you want to attack somewhere, whether it's the king side, queen side, or center, you bring all your pieces there. So you have a local piece majority. You can't attack if you have less pieces than the opponent on that side of the board. So you see, now we're gonna play something like queen e6, and knight e4 is begging to be played. At some point I will transfer my pieces, as many as possible, to the king side, bringing in the rooks, anybody I can recruit for my attack. Okay, and then I will start bombing this white king. I'm not gonna do it with only a queen and a knight because those attacks never work. A lot of beginners, they try to put like one queen there and one knight there, and they get disappointed when white just plays like knight g3 and says, so what? Now, if there are additional attackers, like there are in this case right now, every single piece is attacking the white king, so we should have something like rook takes e3, then they take, we can take on g3. We are not threatening checkmate yet because of the queen, but we are threatening, for example, queen takes e3 and also bishop takes h3. The white king is in a lot of trouble right now. It's not so easy to defend for white, even though he is up material. So as we can see here, remember three things when you get out of the opening. The first one is called the arrow. So right now black had the arrow here. That's why he was attacking on the king side, because that's where he has more space. The arrow actually shows you where your pieces have more space. For example, if I add another pawn here, I have all this space for my pieces, and that's where they can attack. I don't have any space here, so I'm clearly not attacking there, right? The second thing is the local piece majority that I mentioned, right? So if I have 20 pieces attacking the poor white king, then I'm probably gonna checkmate him. If I have two more attackers than he has defenders, my attack should work. So for example, if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and he has basically no one, especially if you put the pawn here, and I just bring in my rook right now, then this king should be checkmated by logic of chess, right? It's almost some unwritten law in chess. that allows for this, right? And the third thing that I mentioned was the mobile pawns. So right now, white has mobile pawns on the queen side. That's why he should be pushing them, because clearly he's not going to be attacking here, as if we push the pawns on the weaker side for us, we're creating weaknesses and not actually attacking. We only look like we're attacking. Actually, we're just helping the opponent and making his job easier. Okay, guys, hopefully you remember that next time you choose a plan after the opening.